Welcome to the Human Being Unleashed podcast, where we redefine, realign, and reimagine what it means to be human so that you can live a life with the health, wealth, and relationships that are inherently yours. So today I have a little interesting episode for you today. I actually have an interview that my amazing business partner, Nikki Hoffman, did with another amazing individual. So you're not going to hear my beautiful voice other than this short little blab right here. Aside from that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just hand it right off to Nikki, and I hope you enjoy. In fact, who am I kidding? I know you will. This story here, after I personally listened to it, I was like, yo, this is crazy. So happy we got this on the podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
On today's episode, you are going to meet Anthony Flores. And when I first heard his story, I could not believe the amount of grit this human embodied. And before alluding to too many details, I just want you to give it a listen because I think you'll find yourself in a lot of what he went through. Maybe not the exact details, but maybe you can see yourself in some of the things he did and didn't do. All right, Anthony, thank you again for coming on and sharing your story today. The first time I heard it when you shared it with the group of partners, it just hit me in so many ways. And I'm sure listeners today are going to have the same amount of feels as they listen to you share everything that you've been through and the grit, resilience, and determination you had to not only make it through what you made it through, but to get to where and to do what you did. So I'll stop talking and I'll let you share a little bit about what it is, where you began. Let's start with, let's just start at the beginning, whatever you feel that is.
Yeah, sure. No, and thank you so much for having me. Really excited. First podcast. So let's do this.
And this is the first of many. I know this to be true because, oh my gosh, you have so many people to inspire with this story, Anthony.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and your time and energy. So once upon a time, after high school, I was into in a dark place because I just felt like everybody around me had some sort of purpose, had some sort of like a target to hit, and here I am, just no desire to do anything, and I just was just existing in this world without a purpose, and I just got into a dark place with myself. I didn't really do anything. I didn't have a job at the time either. MTV was still cool at the time, so I watched that, and it's laid around and ate pizza all the time, and that's all I knew. Until one day I finally was woken, I guess you can say. I went up a flight of stairs at my parents' house, and 14 steps, I counted them. Mm-hmm. And once I finally got to the top, I was short of breath. I couldn't breathe. It was an awful feeling. I'm like, whoa, what's happening? And I just realized I'm like this huge person. I carry on this large body. I'm like, man, what happened? It's weird to say that, but it happened to me too. So I'm sure like a lot of people can relate to that. But then I realized, like, man, I need to do something. This is an awful feeling, carrying around a large body, short of breath. I could barely bend over, tie my own shoes. That's a chore. that's hard work when you're at that size. Yeah, and like I needed to do something. And at the time, I was going to have my first nephew into this world. I wanted to become, an active uncle for this kid. And I grew up with 4 sisters. I was the second youngest, and like here's my chance to become like a brotherly figure to this young man or young kid. And that inspired me to sign up to go to the YMCA the very next day. And then I showed up with like the classic hoodies, sweatshirt, and like pants and all, looking like Rocky. So, like a scene that you see from Rocky, like, and that's all I knew. Like, I had no idea, like, I didn't have the information that we have now available to us. Like, I was going off of what I saw in movies and shows and, Men's Health magazine at the time. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? I just gotta go. I need to go, because what I'm doing right now is absolutely nothing. And I need to make a difference. I need to start making a difference in my life. Sure enough, like, once I walked into the gym at the Y, I mean, like, sure, it was pretty intimidating, because you see all these wonderful, good looking people super active. I'm like, here I am, just, walking, schlepping away. Like, well, what should I do?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have any guidance at the time. And the very first thing I saw was the arc trainer. It's like an elliptical, and I'm like, you know what, let's try this out. I really, like, I see people running on the treadmill. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that just yet. Let me just ease my way into this. So I hopped on this arc trainer, and I just, whatever setting it was awful. I'm like, all I did was just push that start button and go.
Setting awful.
Yeah, setting awful. Great, let's do it.
And actually, I want to pause you there real quick, because you had mentioned before that you are motivated more by pain.
Yeah.
So the fact that in your language you even speak that, like, let's just go. But yeah, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great, and I think it's important to recognize too, where we're either motivated by pain or pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I am motivated by pain because, like I mentioned, I don't want to feel that way anymore. I don't want to feel out of breath. I want to feel like I want to be a healthy person. I want to show up to the world that I can just do anything. I want to participate in life. And what I was doing was just pain for me. Like, emotionally, I felt alone. I felt worthless. I felt undeserving. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. Like, you know what? Let's hop on this elliptical. And you know what? I was on there for 9 minutes. I got off right away. I didn't even last 10.
It is all good. Those can be tough. And those steppers.
Yeah.
Oh,
like, setting awful. So, like, I did what I could. 9 minutes. I stepped off and I went home right away, because it was hard. I'm like, why do people do this? Why do people exercise for this, feel? But I went back home, and it took me like 2 or 3 days to get myself back in there, because I had to remind myself, like, hey, what you're doing right now is not going to get you any closer to being that uncle that you want to be, or being that healthy person that you want to be. So I just, like, created this imagination in my mind. Like, I want to become this person. I'm like, I have to simply just start behaving this type of person I need to be. And, if that requires to be, go on the elliptical for 10 minutes, and then that's cool. And I didn't think about, like, doing the hard thing. It just came easier to me, because I had a strong vision, a purpose to do the things I needed to do. And I remind myself that this is just a temporary feel, like going through the exercise or whatever, or facing resistance on eating more vegetables, whatever. Because for the longest time, I didn't eat any or hardly any. Maybe if it was like on my pizza, sure, but still.
There's such an immense lesson in everything you've shared already, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you had that pivotal moment, like many of us do, where enough's enough. You walked up those 14 stairs and you said, I don't want to feel this way any longer, and that you want to participate in life. And then you were lucky enough, not even lucky enough, but luckily you had that mindset of, I'm going to do these things because I'm being the person I need to be the person like, you were making a vote every day to be that person, the uncle that you wanted to be, the kind of energy you wanted to have. You weren't necessarily just taking these actions to get to somewhere, like, you fully embodied, and the listeners will hear that throughout the rest of your story, what it meant to do that.
Yeah. And like, I'm glad you brought that up too. And, like, nowadays, the last, like, year or so, like, mindset is just, like, everything now, right? like I was doing mindset work before. What I didn't know what mindset was. Like, I get, luckily, sure, maybe it was gifted with this. Like I was meant to have this superpower, I guess you can say, to
Yeah.
take myself through this journey on my own for at this particular time. But yeah, like as I kept going to the gym, like I would see like all these guys, like, you know, they almost like, hey, come join us over here. Like you're putting a ton of effort on these cardio machines, but you're not really doing stuff over here with the weights. Like, you know, like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, like I went off of what I saw like on movies and shows and what magazines would tell us to do. You know, like when you used to first think of weight loss, you think of I need to do cardio, right? You know, like so I didn't really have that much strength, and luckily there was people that were there to guide me to like, hey, let's do some squats or deadlifts or whatever. Like,
use those
like,
weights, and you're a big dude.
yeah.
You're
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Met you in person. I was like, dang.
Yeah. I had this like, people think I'm smaller than I am, but yeah, like no. But like there were those guys like all bodybuilders too, so they taught me like the Arnold way at the time, because you know, like it's like there's this illusion of if you work your upper body, you're gonna have a smaller waist. I'm like, sign me up. Like, that's all I have to do. But yeah, like, but I built up this endurance with like doing a bunch of like conditioning cardio type, and I got myself really curious to start doing like more running events, like like a 5K, like a 2-mile 5K. And I was like pretty quick for my size. Like I was still over 200, just a little over 200 pounds. But before I go on, like I did not weigh myself when I first started. Just to point that out. Yeah, I did not weigh myself when I first started. I did not want to know. I knew I had a problem, and I just didn't want to find out. All I knew was like I have to address this. And until I finally weighed myself, I was like way just over 300, and I'm like, man, and I lost a significant amount of weight already. Like people were noticing, like, whoa. Like, yeah, so
awesome.
And over time I just gave myself permission to be brave and like step on that scale, so we can use this as data for like to like learn how our bodies like
responding to what
responding. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, how our body
what's measures managed, right?
Right, exactly.
But so often we don't even want to, like you said, face the issue in front of us, so we just avoid it. But
right.
Yeah,
at some point we have to face the reality of it, right? But yeah, like I was a pretty good short distance runner until and then like it's all these things started happening around me that I wasn't just used to. Like I was getting attention from ladies all of a sudden. I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. This is pretty cool. Like, I'm like, are you sure you're talking to me? I'm like, it was fun. And like people wanted to hang out with me. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, I'm living a pretty awesome life right now. I'm living with confidence. I'm active. I'm playing with my nephew. I'm participating in life, like I said, and it was beautiful. I got it. I went from that state of loneliness, unworthiness, to like feeling really good about myself, and then one day I get knocked down. I'll start experiencing pain in my testicles, but I completely ignored it for like days, because I'm like, whatever, it's just a temporary thing, whatever, no big deal. But I got to the point where I was like dragging my leg, and people were like, you need to go to the doctor. There's something wrong with you. Like even like my workplace at the time, like I was working at a lumber yard. My performance was down. They're like, you're not showing up the way you used to. Like, you need to go to doctor. They actually dismissed me. Like, you need to go to doctor right now.
Wow.
Yeah, like something's wrong. Like, and I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. And like out of pure love, they did that for me, of course. But yeah, after some testing, so on and so on, I'm at the doctor by myself, and the doctor who had my test, he didn't even really like introduce himself. It was kind of weird. He just showed up. I'm sitting on a chair. Like I can. He just said like, "Hey, Anthony, you have testicular cancer." I mean, instantly, I just looked down. Eyes are watering up, and I'll look up at him. The very first thing I asked him was, "Am I going to die?" Because cancer was super scary like back then. I'm a 15-year survivor right now.
It's still super scary,
It
Anthony.
is, yes, right. Yeah, you're right. It is. No, 100%. But
15-year survivor. Okay, that's cool because I didn't know the time frame of how long you have been a survivor. So that's awesome to know.
Yeah. So like 15 years now and counting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like, and it was just awful. And I was just so angry with the world, and I wasn't in denial. I'm like, whatever, man. I left. I cried my eyes out on the way to my girlfriend's house, actually. And I just started bawling, and she didn't know what to say or do. I'm like, I didn't expect anything. I wasn't looking for something. I just wanted to let that out. I'm just like, this sucks so bad. Like finally, I'm at the place where I wanted to be. I'm like, and more. I'm now just healthy, but I was just doing things. Like I said, I was participating in life. I was more active. I was more social. And I was just, instead of just being alone at home by myself and just hiding. But me being in denial, I went down to Frederick Hospital, which is an hour south of me. It's in Milwaukee. Because they're specialists down there for cancer. I'm like, I need to know. I need a second opinion. Like it could be a twisted testicle or something. That was the other idea that they had. But sure enough,
for getting a second opinion though too. I think that's really important to mention because so often we even take our own opinion as truth when if we were to just zoom out and think differently or get a second opinion on things, it can truly change everything. But obviously in this case, it was true. You did have testicular cancer.
Yeah. The doctor there, he's like, you know what, the only difference I would have taken you to emergency surgery right away. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. I went back home, signed me up. Let's do the surgery. Let's take care of this thing. Let's get it over with. And, during the recovery phase after surgery, like I couldn't do anything. And it reminded me of how I was living before, just laying around, binge eating, whatever. And then I got back to that state again, just because I felt like a victim, I was sad, like so angry at the world, mad at God. I was just all of it, just like, why did this happen to me? Like, like also, like, as I mentioned, like I'm finally in this state of happiness. But, I just suddenly like stopped thinking that way. I'm like, you know what? This is just a temporary feel, just like how I did with my workouts before. This is just a temporary feel. I have to treat this as another easy day. Like, what can I do to simplify this today? Like, whether it's, like eating better, cool, drinking water, cool, whatever. And just like talking to someone that makes me happy. Like, it's like, cause I didn't want to be alone anymore. But like, as going during the recovery, like I still gained weight, like whatever. And I'm like, I'm going backwards, man. This sucks. And then we started getting into radiation treatments, and I just kicked my ass, and it drained me, and messed with my head, and like, but I was able to still move though, and I decided, you know what, I need to go back to the gym. I need to keep moving. I'm not gonna perform at a high level or anything like that because I just don't have the energy to do it. And I'm like, like I need to be back in that environment with fit people, healthy people, happy people, like working on themselves. But like during the treatments, they like early on, they've mentioned like you're advised not to work out. Like they don't have back then, like we didn't have the evidence that supported like the benefits of like exercise and make you feel good, right? I'm like, I don't care. I'm still gonna go. And like they weighed me daily to see how like just how my body reacts and whatnot. And they just would see these fluctuations going down and down. And they're like, Anthony, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, but I'm just tired.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's like, what do you think that could be? I'm like, well, I'm going to the gym. I'm working out. And they're like, well, why? We tell you not to. I'm like, it's just something I want to do. Like I said, I wanted to be in that environment. And like daily, like I would go radiation treatments like 5 days a week for a little over a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And finally got to the point where I was just sick of them asking me. You know, I got like, mind you, during this phase of treatment, like I'm half naked, exposing myself to a team of, you know, like the radiation team. And that's super uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. I'm laying on this cold medical table. I could still feel it to this day. And one of the nurses came up to me while I was laying there. She's like, Anthony, we tell you not to work out. Why do you keep going? And I remember just turning my head to her, and I said it with like conviction, like,
Yeah.
because I want my life back.
Yeah.
I want my life back. I want my life back. You know, this isn't me. This does not define me. Like, I don't want to be known as a cancer survivor. Like that back then, I don't want to be known as a cancer survivor. Like, you know, it's not that I was ashamed. It's just like, I don't want that label on me. Because when people looked at me, when I told them that, they just looked at me like I was almost like a death sentence. They felt sorry for me. And I'd never forget those faces.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I am going to come out of this way better. I promise. I said that to myself. Like, I didn't say that to anybody. I'm like, I'm going to come out of this healthier, better, stronger. Like, I was determined. Just the same way I was like, the thought, well, when I was obese, I'm going to become this healthy person. And what helped me, you know, I think that way was, you know, Lance Armstrong was a man at the time too. You know, he was winning all these Tour de France's. He gave me hope. Like, I don't care what anyone has to say about the decisions that he made. You know, like, I don't agree with them, of course. I'm not supporting them, but he gave me that belief. I borrowed his energy to.
I love when you say that.
Yeah,
Energy.
yeah. Like, I had it. Like, and he made me believe I can do anything. I'm not gonna go and try and win Tour de France. I'm just gonna do my own thing here. It's like, well, like, I'm gonna have my own great story as well. But yeah, like after that, I started to get into, like, over time after radiation, I was finally recovered and, you know, getting back into shape. You know, like, I want to say like 6 months later, I finally got myself into like starting getting myself to longer distance running, like going to half marathons, full marathons. Now, I was pretty good at them. At some point, like, I was like maybe like 210, and I did a half marathon at an hour 29, which is like a 6:50-minute pace, which is cruising.
That is so insane. And how much did you weigh at that time? Because you're a lot of mass to move.
Yeah, right. I was like 210 at the time too. But, you know, like, people don't believe me when I say, I'm like, I'm gonna be under an hour 30 minutes. Yeah. You're like, okay. And I'm like, no, I'm for real. I'm gonna do it. Like,
watch me.
Like, right, exactly. And then you're like, you know, another reason, like, people like get motivated is to prove people wrong, but like, no, it's more like, for me, like, I want to see what I'm capable of. You know, like I'm not doing it for like anybody else. I'm a very curious person. I'm like, I want to see what I can do. But yeah, and once I got over this like running phase, I'm like, you know what else can I do? What else is out there? And then I was introduced to triathlons. Like, I had no idea what that was. And a friend of mine was going like, hey, you want to try this out? I'm like, yeah, sure. Sign me up. I don't have a bike, but I'll do it.
I love that decisiveness and just that all for it. And you go all in. There's not like an in between. It's, you see what you want, and you go after it.
Yeah. I'm like, swim, bike, run, no problem. Whatever. Like, I'll learn how to swim. And, you know, like, I forgot to mention this on the partners call, but like, the day, my very first triathlon, the day before is when I finally got my bike. And then the next day I participated in my first one. So, like I was using, yeah. So I was using like the stationary bikes at the Y as my training. Like I didn't have a road bike. I couldn't afford one at the time. So I finally got it like the day before. So
no excuses with you. And I want to pause you right there real quick, because that is fascinating to me, because people that do these triathlons, they usually have their bike fitted and all this jazz so that they can
I was super sore
perform.
afterwards. But
I can only imagine. But like you said, you didn't have the money at the time. And I've witnessed in knowing you that you make things happen even when it's not easy, when you may or may not have the resources available. You don't let that stop you. Like there's never an excuse that can get in your way from going after what it is you want, which I think is so commendable and like remarkable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so like I participated, and that was my first, and I did pretty good. I mean, I wasn't placing or anything, but like I was pretty proud of my performance. So like this is pretty cool. I want to keep doing this. And over time, I did from the sprint distance all the way up to the full Ironman. Like that's, which is super cool, right? And like
super cool.
Yeah, like I said, I even got to participate, or I've been qualified for the USA national age group triathlon, which was pretty cool. They made you feel like a pro. It was great, and I got to participate in
they made you feel like a pro because you were a pro.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was awesome. It was staged magically, and I participated in the UTI World Triathlon that was held in Chicago, and I'm like, I'll do it. I'm like, whatever. To this day, I do not know how I did on that particular event, because I was just happy to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
The world championship, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like world championship.
Yeah, pretty cool. Right. Yeah. And after a while, I'm like, you know what? I really don't want to do this anymore. Right? It takes up a lot of time. Like if you know anything like about triathlons, it's a full commitment. It's a job. You have to practice 3 different sports, and like I was, I forgot about like participating in life, like hanging out with family more and friends. Like you dedicate your summer doing these events, and like you would like say dedicate your weekends to longer bike rides and whatnot, runs. I'm like, I want to hang out with people I love. Like fast forward to like 2019, 2020, I saw this event called High Rocks. I'm like, oh, what is this? So I said, it's like a functional fitness type of event, like where there's sleds involved, there's the row machine, there's a ski machine, like wall balls at the end, which is awful, but it's a spectacular event. I'm like this is best of both worlds for me. Like this, like you mix in endurance and you mix in strength. I'm like, sign me up. I'm like, this is my element right here. Like this is where I'll thrive. But yeah, but because like I was ready to, like I was looking into High Rocks. I noticed that they have like this world championship event too, but that was being held in Germany. I'm like, how cool would it be to like participate in that? I'm like, I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to go to Germany one day. Like this is 2019, 2020, but because of what happened in 2020, like the world shut down, and like over a year, there was nothing to do. And, but like once I got my shot in 2021, my first event was in Dallas. I think it was April of 2021. Went down there. I really didn't have any expectations for myself. I was like, we're all coming out of quarantine. We're a little slower. We're a little heavier. But I did my best to prepare for this. So, but yeah, I really liked it. I felt really good doing this. I'm like, I can see myself doing this more. And like I said, I had zero expectations. Right? I just wanted to come down and just simply do it. And then like after the event was over, like went back to my hotel room, and I was looking up the results, and I'm like, just to see how I did. Turns out I was like top 3 in my division. Like holy crap. Like once I saw that, I went back downstairs because it was the event was hosted at the same hotel, and then just to get my banner, that was our my number 3 banner that I placed in. I'm like, this is cool. I like it. And the next day I get an email from Hyrox saying, hey, Anthony, you are invited to the USA championships being held in June in Chicago. I'm like, perfect. I'm like, sign me up. I'm like, Chicago's like a 3-hour drive for me. So like even better. Like, and I get to have my family there too. Like my wife, she was my fiance at the time, and my 4-year-old son at the time there too. I'm like, this is cool. Like he gets to see me in action at doing all these things, because he sees me doing all this stuff at the gym, and and I talk about it quite often. He's like, Daddy, I want to see it too. I'm like, okay, we will. But yes, it's super, super cool. And like I figured they were doing a US championship event because the borders were still closed to go to Europe at the time. And I'm like, maybe they're just doing it here, and that's fine. But I still in my mind, like, I want to go to Germany. Yeah. So I participated in that Hyrox event in the US championships, and I felt really good. I dialed in on that particular event. Yeah. Like my dialed in my nutrition, like my sleep was better. Like I purposely got myself prepared for this, like with all the knowledge that I have now, more than like Men's Health magazines and Rocky movies. Like I was well prepared. Yeah. Like I limited my social stuff, life as well, but not like I was hiding or anything like that. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to this. And then when people say like, oh, you're sacrificing, I'm like, no, this is something I really want to do. I'm like, there's no sacrificing. Yeah. But anyways, like doing the event, I felt so good. I'm like, man, I feel unstoppable right now. Like, wow. Like I just was cruising through everything. Like I had my first like practice round, I guess you could say, with my last event. Like I knew what to do. I knew what to expect. So I just got to execute now. But yeah, like afterwards, I felt so good. I felt really confident. Like I know I placed top 3 in this event, no doubt. And sure enough, like I placed second place on that. I'm like, yeah, buddy. Like I even shaved off like 10 minutes off my time too.
That's incredible.
Yeah, right. So like I said, when I dialed in, I dialed in.
No doubt. And that was so cool how you said you had your test run with the first event, so you knew what to expect. But had you not done that first event, you wouldn't know what to expect. I think so many of us sit on the bench of life and we never participate because we're afraid of the unknown. But you just dive head first and you go and you place like second place, but you still go. It's incredible what you do because you do,
Right. Yeah. Like awesome. I placed and I was super pumped. I'm like, my son's going to get to see me on the podium, and he's a little proud moment for me. So because I want him to see, like me, like it's gonna sound weird, like me winning, because I want him to see, like I want him to like have the aspiration as well to win, like in anything that he wants to do. Like just to see that proud moment of myself being up there, and I'm sure he was like proud too, because I could see his little smiley face when I want to go up there. And then I realized, like, you know what, Anthony, I like went up to him, like, hey, do you want to come up there with me? And he's a shy kid too, and he's like, oh, I don't know, Dad. And he's like, no, just come with me, be brave with me, just come on. He's like, okay, Daddy. And we went up there, and I'm holding up my banner. You could see his face just light up, and he's super big smile. His eyes are just like wandering, like looking at the crowd, and it's like, and I was so happy with that moment, and I'll forever cherish that. Like that's one of my favorite pictures of all time. Like me and my son on that podium, number 2 spot. Like, of course, it would have been better if it was number 1, but like just having that moment with him, like sharing that spotlight with him, like I was like, this is how it feels to like dedicate yourself to something. Like if you put in the work, if you put in the effort, like the simplicity of the things that I did, right? I'm consistent and be patient. we can get what we want. And you know, like, and I hope that was like something he'll always remember for the rest of his life. So that was awesome. I loved it. And you know, like the next day, I received another email from Hyrox, and I'm like, oh, I figured it was like, I'll sign up for the next event. I'm like, I'm like, okay. But I open it, it's like, Anthony, you qualified to go to Germany. I'm like, what? like you're going to Germany, like you qualified for the Hyrox World Championships.
Yes,
I'm
you
like,
did.
holy crap. Like, this is what I've been dreaming of. And this is my imagination for like the last like 2 years now, thinking about this particular one. I'm like, and I even wrote it down. I'm like, there's a list of experiences that I have. I'm going to Germany for Hyrox. That was one of the top things I wanted to do. And it came true. It's magic. but of course, like, we have to realize, like, you know, it's good to imagine, but we have to keep ourselves in check and realize that we have to still put into work though too. There's a lot of people, it happens quite often. Like, we feel like we already have that. In reality, we don't.
That's actually such a good point. That's such a good point for so many reasons, but I'll let you keep.
Keep telling your story. You know, like, again, like, so that was in July, and then the Hyrox Worlds was in September. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go all in on this too. Like, I'm not drinking. I'm not gonna limit my fun processed food stuff. Like, I'm really gonna dial in on this. And what made this event even more special was it was on September 11th. So like, it holds a special place in my heart because the day I did the full Ironman 2 was on September 11th, 10 years prior. As well. I'm like, I did a huge event on that particular day, and I get to participate in this one, but at a world stage representing the USA. I'm like, yeah, buddy, here we go. Like this. But
you said I get to, like, you realize, I think you fully embody the fact that this is truly a gift that we get to have these experiences that we do, right? And you go all in the participation of that. Like, I love it so much.
Like, let's do this. So like, and it was even more better that my parents were coming with me too, and they get to see their young man to participate in like possibly the biggest like sporting event to ever get to do. And you know, looking back, like reflecting back on it, it's like, wow, like 300 and let's say 350 plus pounds to where I am today. So I get to participate in a world competition representing a country. I'm like, wow. I took that all in, and suddenly I started crying because I'm a crier.
You feel into it. That's a good thing. Fully experience.
Yeah. So I finally got to Germany, and it was just magical to me. I'm like, I'm actually here. And it was wonderful. And it's just day, and like, going off the topic here, but it's just day and night to me how healthier people look over there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, and I'm just like, I'm sitting at a cafe and I'm just like talking to my parents. I'm like, do you guys notice something about these people? They're like, no, what's up? Like, they look really healthy. Like, they take care of themselves here. Everybody's more active here. Like, sure, they're known for their beers and ice creams and all that stuff, but like, everything else is regulated pretty well, in my opinion. Like, you look at their menus, like, you don't see anything deep fried. It's crazy to me. I'm like don't, like, here in Wisconsin, everything's deep fried except for the water. You know?
But you said, like, you noticed that environment and you noticed the difference. And in your past, you wanted to immerse yourself back in that gym because of the environment that in the fields that it generated within you, right? You wanted to expose yourself to the people healthy and happy. And so you weren't alone. So like, you have an eye for these things to even notice, whereas most people might not. I think that's worth noting.
Right. Yeah. It's not like they look like super fit people. They just look healthy, like slender, and like their skin complexion was awesome. I'm like, this is great. like these are my people here. Like, if only the US can take some pointers from over there.
Yeah,
but
let's hope.
okay.
If not, we'll just move. It's
Yeah, it's like a funny story. Like, they have bratwurst, so they're here in Sheboygan. We're known as the brat capital of the world. So
Yeah.
of course we have to like try out their German authentic food, the bratwurst over there. And we ordered a pretzel, my parents and I, like as an appetizer. And one of the first things was like, here we like it comes with cheese, like a nacho cheese.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for this, like, where's the nacho cheese at? And I'm like, but I didn't even ask for it, but like in my head, I'm like, they don't do that here. It's just so funny to me, like how, like I said, it's day and night. Like we purposely add in stuff to, like, I don't want to say harm us, but like set us back some more. But I like I said, it's just a awesome observation from my end. But back to the High Rocks magic here.
Yeah.
Like all the videos of all the pictures that I've seen from their website prior High Rocks World events, it just like once I finally got into that environment, I'm like, whoa, I'm really here. I almost felt like a dream to me. Like, and it's like I was been dreaming about this for the last like 2 years now. And finally, like it was my time to shine. It was my time to go, like with the starting line. And I never felt so confident in a sporting event in my life. I'm like, let's go. I want to see how far I could push myself. Like, I didn't come all the way over here just to do it. I want to win. Like prior to training, I'd always tell myself, I would give myself like an inspiration statement, like strong and fast, like in Elite Pro, strong and fast. Like whenever I didn't want to work out, whenever I wanted to give in and eat like, an entire pizza, whatever, or have that booze, like, no, you're strong and eat an Elite Pro. This is what we do. Like, you have to behave this sort of way if you want to find out what you're capable of over there. So I'm like, all right. So
you chose that identity, and every action that followed lined up with that identity. That's huge.
Yeah. And like I felt like I said this for the US championship, but I felt even better on this one. I felt super, super awesome. Like unstoppable, like the definition of unstoppable. I felt that right there. That particular event. I'm like, I'm cruising through the run. I'm passing people. Like I'm just dominating. But like once things got really hard, because I've always pushed myself really hard. I am, but I had to remind myself of that inspiration statement with the training, like, no, strong and fast, like an Elite Pro. Like I would say that out loud to myself, because we talk a lot of shit to ourselves, with those negative thoughts, like, and like those voices, like you can slow down. It's okay. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like I would have these conversations with myself out loud while I was running or pushing the sled or rowing or skiing. Like I would like chunk stuff down. Like, okay, just one more lap over here. Like just get there. That's it. And just move on to the next. Like I wasn't thinking of the next thing ahead of time. Like it's just like, let's do this. Let's just simplify this right now. Like, what can I do right now just to not slow down too much, but enough to like for me to recover and just go. So like it was all strategic for me. I just kept like talking to myself throughout the whole thing out loud. Mind you.
Didn't you have a phrase like stop listening to yourself and start talking? What's your phrase you said?
That is. Yeah. It's like, like whenever we're having these like negative thoughts, emotions, and it's like I tell myself and my members I work with, like, stop listening to yourself, start talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And that pays off so much. Like whenever like you're not capable, that fear comes in, and just tell yourself, like, stop it. Or you know what? Just snap your fingers, slap your legs, give yourself a little slap in the face. I don't care. Like just be aware of those things and get out of it right away. Because you will win no matter what.
Right. You have that choice. Right.
So finally I got done with what felt like forever. But I knew at the very end, I knew I did what I came to do. Like I pushed myself so hard, but I made it easy at the same time. Like I bent over, I was sitting down. I was so dizzy, to be honest with you.
I bet.
And I was like, I wanted to collapse on the floor, but I have this weird thing of like, you should like never ever lay down on the floor after an event, because that just shows like you're defeated. That's just me. Like I'd rather bend over and grab onto my shorts. Like you probably see, like it's funny that I mentioned this because like if Michael Jordan does this, I guess he would just bend over, grab onto his shorts, and I just borrowed that from him too when I used to watch him play basketball. That's the best recovery for me. Like I'd rather sit down, but I'm not going to lay down to look like I just got defeated. I'm like, no, I'm like, I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
I encourage that to my members too. I'm like, it's okay if you do that, but just realize like, get up right away. Like once it happens.
Well, I love that you're borrowing what these elite athletes and epic humans are doing, because you're modeling after people that have done things, inspired people. And I just want to say that people are going to model, and luckily you coach. Like, I'm so grateful that you coach, because people are modeling you. They get to learn from you and your experience and everything. You can see that you have an elite mindset. Like,
oh, thank you.
I mean it, Anthony. You really do.
I know you do. I don't think you lie to me.
No. So yeah, just like we can kind of place these celebrities on pedestals, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that it's good to use them as a frame of reference like you have, and model their actions, because it's obvious that what they're doing has got them to where they've gone. And yeah, like I said, I'm just grateful that your members can do the same with you.
Oh, thank you. But like afterwards I get the results and I did not place. Unfortunately, those European guys are really fast, and really fast and strong. And I tried really hard, but like I did manage to cut down my time again for like I think almost 10 minutes again. So like between my first event to the world champ, like this is my third event.
Yeah,
I managed to like cut down 20 minutes worth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But I got to like, even though I was top 5, I ended up being top 5. I'm like, I will take top 5 in the world for sure. No problem. But I almost like once I found out I was top 5, only like placed top 5, I started getting these negative emotions, like failed, but I'm like, you know what? Like, no, like you came and you said you were going to push yourself. And I did that 100%. Like I knew I did. And if that was my best for that day, I will accept it. And then I found, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm just going to look at the results here, and I'm looking at the countries ahead of me. And I realized, I'm like, whoa, I'm the very first American to finish.
That's amazing.
I'm like, yeah, I will take that number 1 any day.
That's right.
Like top 5 in the world, first American.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'm like, wow. And what a blessing, to be honest with you. Like my life is a beautiful struggle. And
so well said.
To go from obesity to finding that healthy happiness to getting crushed with testicular cancer to becoming the elite. I don't want to say elite. I like to think
you can so say yeah.
I like to think
own it.
Athlete. Like being a father too. Like at one point I did not think I was going to be a dad. Like it was a big surprise to me once I found I was going to be a dad, and he's a true blessing as well. He's a big motivator. He drives me to become a better person, like not just as a father figure, but a better husband, like a better coach, business owner. It's all beautiful. I'm super grateful for this life.
I love it so much. And the law of observation that your kid is going to, he's going to observe you doing all of these things. And that speaks louder than any of these words that we've been exchanging today could do. Actually seeing dad embody the characteristics needed to achieve these things. So thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your story, because we learn best through stories. And I could not think of someone better to interview than you when it comes to resilience, grit, and like the champion's mindset. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
You're
Disney
welcome.
had to make this up.
So true. Is there anything that I didn't bring up or didn't ask that you would like the listeners to know? And if not, that's okay too, but that's something that I always love to ask in the end. Maybe even just a philosophy or,
like I guess a good question I like to ask like myself and people I work with is, who could you become if you allowed yourself to? And figure that out and give yourself permission to win.